Most veterans walk into the compensation and pension exam like it's just another appointment, and that mistake alone can cost you your rating. The compensation and pension exam is one of the most important parts of the VA disability claims process, and if you don't understand how it works, you can unknowingly hurt your case without even realizing it. In this video, I'm going to break down the 3 biggest mistakes that veterans make during their C&P exams and how to make sure that you don't do those yourself. And then I'm going to walk you through what the C&P exam is, how to prepare for it, and then what to do after you're finished so that you can walk in with confidence and protect the claim that you've been building. So with that said, let's roll. So before we get into what the compensation and pension exam is, let's talk about the 3 biggest mistakes that veterans usually make when it comes to the C&P exam. 1 is not preparing for it. And I think a lot of that is just not, the fact that you're not preparing for it is because you don't know how to prepare for it. So it ends up as a result in veterans guessing at the answers or being inconsistent because they're put on the spot and they know the importance of the exam. So the inconsistency lies in what I'm telling the examiner to what the evidence states when I turn that in to the VA. You don't want inconsistencies. You don't want to guess. Next is treating the exam like a doctor's appointment. Your compensation and pension exam is not a doctor's appointment. They're there to gather evidence to turn into the VA to help them rate your claim. So don't go in thinking that they're going to treat you or figure out what's wrong with you. And then lastly, what veterans are really good at is downplaying their symptoms because they allow their ego to get in the way. And trust me, I was the same way. It is hard to go in front of somebody and tell them, what it feels like you're complaining about pain, because we're veterans. That's what we do. We suck things up. So it's important to put your ego in check and make sure that you highlight your symptoms and your condition so that they can adequately capture the frequency, the intensity, and the impact to your life. So again, want to cover the foundation. These are the 3 pillars the VA must have in order to rate you with a service-connected disability. That is 1, a current diagnosis, 2, a current symptoms, and 3, a nexus to an in-service event, injury, illness, or condition. So if you haven't watched our videos, I would recommend that you go back and you watch our videos where we talk about, I go into depth on the research, the gather, and the organization of your claim information and how everything goes back to these 3 pillars. Because there's no difference. When I go to the compensation and pension exam, I must point, I have to have the evidence, I have to have my answers point back to this answer or the evidence is either pointing back to my current diagnosis, my current symptoms, or how it ties in to effects or an incident or an injury when I was serving. So without those 3, you miss one of those, the VA is going to deny your claim. So what is a C&P exam and why does it matter? So during the claims process, what happens is you should have already filed your intent to file. If you've watched any of my videos, you'll know I'm going to tell you to go file an intent to file because that will lock in your back pay date and it will put you on a 12-month clock to provide your official claim paperwork and the medical evidence. So what happens is once you put your intent to file in, the VA is going to do nothing. You basically told them, hey, within the next 12 months, I'm going to tell you what you're claiming. I'm going to give you the evidence to show. So when you put your official claim paperwork in, what the VA needs filled out is a disability benefits questionnaire or a DBQ. This can be filled out by a private provider that you provide and the VA can elect to accept it, or the VA will send you to a third-party examiner, and that third-party examiner will look at your evidence, run the DBQ, answer all the questions it needs to, and turn that document into the VA that talks about your condition or your diagnosis. The part of filling out the DBQ is your compensation and pension exam. So the biggest thing to remember is it's an exam, it's not treatment. So when you go in, the examiner's not on your side. Every once in a while, you'll get a really good C&P examiner. But, they're under no obligation to do anything for you other than answer the questions that the VA requires. And that's the DBQ. You can find the DBQ online. Matter of fact, it is imperative that you go Google your condition or whatever you're claiming, DBQ. It's going to be the first thing that shows up. You need to understand the DBQ because you need to understand the questions that they're going to ask you before they ask you so that you're not caught off guard and you're not guessing. And it allows you to know exactly where the evidence is and your stack of evidence that you're going to take with you because you need to make a copy for your C&P examiner. So that when they ask you the question, you're not only just telling them, it's like show and tell. They ask you a question, you tell them and you show them. They ask you a question, you tell them and you show them. This way, they're not necessarily having to take your word on something that's happening or how much you're complaining or how much your symptoms and the severity, the frequency, and the intensity affect your life. Is you're showing them the evidence from a provider, from a test, from an image that you've had done. And it's the examiner's job to document those symptoms, severity, and impact. So if I understand what they're going to ask me before they ask me, I can go back in, especially if they start talking about a list of symptoms, is that I'm ready to explain to that examiner, okay, you get migraines. Like, how bad are they? What are the symptoms? You're not sitting there for the first time hearing that going, I don't know, it just hurts really bad. You're able to go in and to be able to say, hey, whatever those symptoms are that you have, but you go in and you say, hey, I'm nauseous. I have to lay down in a dark room. I can't be around loud things. Whatever those symptoms are specific to you, you can ensure that you highlight to that examiner so they can capture it as evidence on the DBQ. So again, they're in there to simply gather evidence. They confirm your diagnosis because remember, first thing you got to have is a current diagnosis. So they will confirm the diagnosis that you have. They're going to evaluate your symptoms and your limitations. Those symptoms, again, and limitations shouldn't be the first time that they're seeing it. It should already be in your pile of evidence that you're providing to the VA as part of your claim. Now, I will tell you, in theory, the examiner should have your VA files, depending on when you put them in, if they've got them, if the VA sends them. The ones I always been to, I'm just going to be honest with you, either they didn't have them or they played dumb and just said, hey, I'm here to examine you for, lower lumbar spine or whatever the claim I was making. So I always made sure that in my evidence, I had 3 piles. I had a pile for myself, I had a pile for the VA, and I had a pile for the compensation and pension examiner. And I gave that to them. And it was highlighted. If you go back and you watch our videos, and you'll know as part of the organizational phase of the research gather organization is in the organization part is I would highlight date, doctor, diagnosis, 1 or 2 symptoms, or 1 or 2 sentences. And so it was important. So when I gave that to the examiner and told them, here, this is your copy, so that when I left, if they wanted to go in and dig in to get some more refinement, is that every piece of medical evidence that I had was pertinent. I didn't provide information that didn't matter to my claim. Everything I gave them was directly related to my claim to either support a current diagnosis, current symptoms, or my nexus to a military in-service event, injury, illness, or condition. So when I gave that to them, I didn't want to give them, 20 or 30 pages that were randomly put in. It was all chronological, but it allowed them because they have limited time because they've got all these veterans that they've got to see, is that was the important part of highlighting it, so that as they thumb through the information looking for it, is that it would direct their eyes directly to it, so that I could get the proper the proper evidence annotated, and not just a bunch of stuff where they just give up and do an incomplete or a poorly written disability benefits questionnaire. And then the exam helps the rater make a decision. So that is that middle piece. That is that disability benefits questionnaire. So you have your evidence and the disability benefits questionnaire, which then goes to the rater to make a decision. So ensure that, because the raters are going to heavily rely on the DBQ, that the DBQ is accurate. So you're prepared to answer the questions so that you can nail the symptoms, severity, frequency, and intensity every time they ask for it. And again, your evidence and your answers have got to match. You don't want your evidence, down here, and you're saying, well, I live in, my average pain levels are 2 or 3, and then I get there, and all of a sudden my compensation and pension exam, my average pain is 8 or 9, and I can't do anything, because the VA is going to look at that and they're not going to hold very much credibility, and it's going to hurt your claim. So ensure that you understand the evidence that you are providing. Get familiar with it. Know what it says so that my answers can match the evidence that I'm providing. And I get all that in my research, gather, and organization foundation. Right? So it's important. RGO, take the time to research the claim, gather the pertinent information, and then organize it in a manner that tells your story. If I do all those 3 things, I'm prepared when it comes to my compensation and pension exam. So how do I prepare? Again, 1, I'm going to review my claim file. I want to know what the condition is that I claimed. And I want to make sure that I review everything that's in there that talks about my symptoms, my frequency, severity, and the impact of both my personal and professional life. I need to understand that, because I'm going to mirror those answers and highlight that. And I get all these when I go back and I look at the disability benefits questionnaire, because when I look at the DBQ, I know what they're going to ask me. I also look up the Code of Federal Regulations, so I know exactly how the VA is going to rate me. So I want to highlight the symptoms. I want to highlight all my symptoms that I have. But I want to put precedence on my symptoms that the VA is going to rate me on. But the more symptoms that I highlight, the bigger that the issue is. But I want to make sure, again, that my symptoms are the same. That's what I'm providing in my evidence. And I want to bring my symptom outline. So you can print off your disability benefits questionnaire, and I can fill it out at home. So when I look at it, and I can follow along as they're asking me questions, so they don't miss any of the symptoms. When it talks about, what are your pain levels? Do you have flare-ups? You're able to go in and say, yeah, I have flare-ups. This is what it looks like. This is how it affects me. This is how many I get, per week, per month. If I've got migraines, I'm giving them, 3 or 4 months worth of my migraine trackers, my mood trackers, my pain trackers, whatever the case is. So I want to be able to show them, while it's lay evidence, and they're probably not going to accept it, but you're able to at least look at it and say, hey, if we're talking about pain, here's my average pain, in a 2 or 3 month period. Instead of just going, well, yeah, it hurts. How much? Pretty much all the time. You're able to say, here's a pain tracker from, January, February, and March, and April. Right? This will give you an idea if it's morning, if it's afternoon, if it's in the evening, how long it lasts, what makes it better, what makes it worse. You're able to show these. What does it limit you work-wise or in your personal life? You're able to answer those questions with confidence because you know that it's coming, right? Instead of just getting the, oh, yeah, I'm not sure, and I start guessing. Right? Because my guess is, if they don't match my evidence, is going to hurt my claim. Next, I want to make sure that I'm honest, I'm clear, and I'm consistent. Don't over-exaggerate your claim. Don't over-exaggerate your symptoms. But also, don't minimize your symptoms. Don't go in there and be like, well, I don't want to, I don't want to sound weak. You're dragging a leg behind, you can barely lift it up, and you're like, I'm good, man. I'm just, I'm kind of living with it. I'm surviving. Okay, well, cool. Then that's minimum to moderate. And then you get your claim back and you're like, man, I got F by the VA. I got F by my C&P examiner. No, because you minimized your symptoms. This is prominently in the mental health. You go in for a post-traumatic stress, a depression, an anxiety claim, and veterans will downplay their symptoms. How's your sleep? Pretty good. But yet you wake up with night terrors. You're sleeping 3 hours a night. You're completely exhausted, but you tell them, yeah, I sleep pretty good. Okay. You sleep pretty good. That's 8 to 9 hours a night. And then you get your thing back. You get a low rating. And you're like, well, that's bullshit. I don't sleep at all. It's because you told them. You did not highlight that I can't sleep. I go weeks at a time without sleeping. I get very minimal sleep. I'm tired during the day. But you don't highlight it because you allow your ego to get in the way. You've got to strip your ego at the door and be honest with your claim and your symptoms and how it affects your life. Because if you don't, you're going to get a low claim or you're going to get it denied. So it is important to explain your symptoms in an honest, clear, and consistent manner. And the consistency is, what does my record show, my evidence, and what am I telling them, right? Because you don't want to fraud the government. You don't want to go in there and lie about your claim, right? You see that a lot, unfortunately. Is it on both ends? You'll see veterans fraud the government and lie about how bad their symptoms are when it's not. And then you'll see, veterans that will go in there and they will be, excuse my language, they'll be a shit show in life. But when they're in front of the examiner, life is good, right? Life is good will get you denied. So make sure that you're honest. But don't over-exaggerate, but do not minimize your symptoms because of your pride and your ego. And then understand what the examiner is looking for. They're looking for a diagnosis, they're looking for functional limitations, and they're looking for the severity and the impact of your symptoms. So you need to make sure that you explain those, you highlight those. What is the severity? What is the functional impact? How does it affect my personal and professional life? If I'm doing a mental health claim, how does my mental health affect my ability to be productive at work with others, finish projects, get confused, irritated, frustrated? All of those things are important in your claim. So you've got to make sure that you highlight those because that is what the examiner's looking for. But if I follow the research, gather, and organize method, it's going to allow you to walk in prepared and ready to go because I know what they're going to ask me, I know how the VA is going to rate me, and I know exactly what my claim evidence says so that, again, when they ask me a question, I can show them the evidence. That right there is what's going to get you a solid, accurate rating. Hopefully. There's some issues with C&P exams lately. A lot more lately than probably I've seen in the last several years of talking with veterans and their claims. Right? But the best thing that you can do is give it your most honest assessment, right? And being prepared and having the evidence. So that way, if the rater comes in and says, the examiner comes in and says, well, I don't think that's service connected. You can go back to your veteran service officer or your VSO, They can look up the compensation and pension exam, or you can put in, release a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act request. Although you're going to get your rating before you get that. So the quickest way is to go to the VSO, but it allows you to take a look at, what was said, what they annotated, and then if I know I'm prepared and I have all my stuff, I can go back to the VSO and go, what's my next step? Is it a higher level review? Is it, a supplemental claim? Is it an appeal? What is my next move? But I want to be able to go in there and give it my best shot, so that if I come out and I go, I had a bad compensation and pension examiner, here's the exact answers that I gave. Those answers don't match what they put in, versus I wasn't prepared. I went in, I should have said this, but I didn't. Then you're going to get a low rating or a no rating. So how do I act during compensation and pension exam? Again, I want to be respectful and cooperative, right? It is a stressful time. Veterans in general that I've met, myself included, get pissed off that you even have to go do a C&P exam, but you have to understand that it's part of the process. It is part of the game that you have to play. And it's somebody in there, and if you're like myself and many veterans, you get tired of telling your story of how it happened, what makes it worse, how it's gotten worse, what is your pain like, what makes it worse, what makes it better, what can you do, what can't you do, how far can you walk, how much can you sit down at one time, do you have to walk or do you have to sit and stand? You get so tired of answering this, but you have to remember, one, it is part of your claim process. Two, if they don't have the evidence, you cannot make the assumption that they've read your evidence and just say, I don't know, like 30 minutes. I can walk a quarter of a mile. Don't make the assumption that they know anything about you. So suck it up for that 15 or 20 minutes that you have for that specific claim, and just know, okay, it's your first time hearing it from me. So I'm going to tell you everything. And you have to. And when you feel yourself starting to get irritated, take a deep breath. Because again, remember, you can get short. You can get irritated. You can become uncooperative, and your claim will reflect that. So be cooperative, be respectful, and just know, okay, they've probably never seen this again. I have to tell one more person again about my condition, right? Mental health is the worst, because now I got to sit there and redo, you may be in mental health and therapy for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years. And now I got to rehash this whole story about when it happened, things I saw, things that happened to me, what caused this. But remember, check your ego at the door, because this compensation and pension exam is going to help your rating, which is going to have a lasting impact. So it's important. Take a deep breath and go for it. Answer the questions clearly. Again, I want to focus on frequency, severity, and impact in my personal and professional life. That's what I'm looking to answer. I don't want to answer too short, but I don't need to go in and make an extremely long answer. So I've got to find the sweet spot, but I want to answer them very clearly, and then I'm focusing on my symptoms and the severity, frequency, and impact. And again, do not downplay your symptoms. Check your ego at the door. So once I get that done and I walk out, and again, you may have, so within the compensation and pension world, I may have, if I have a claim that has, say, mental health, migraines, and I don't know, something that will require a specialty clinic. I may have 3 different appointments, because I'm not going to have a doctor or a nurse practitioner conduct my depression DBQ and interview. It's not going to happen. you're going to see a psychiatrist or a psychologist that's going to go in and hold that. But I may go in and have, if I'm doing my neck, my back, migraines, radiating pain down my arms and legs, right? So technically that's 4 limbs, neck and back, so that's 6 migraines. So that's 7 claims I'm going to do. They're going to spend, 10 to 15 minutes per claim, give or take, however long it takes for them to do the exam and go through the compensation or the disability benefits questionnaire. So no, you may get one appointment that covers all of those. You may have multiple appointments to go see a specialist that focuses on that particular area if it's something that a regular doctor or a nurse practitioner or physician's assistant or somebody can't fill out. So once I get done with my exam, what I want to do is I want to go back and just capture, okay, how did my exam go? How long did it take? What kind of questions did they ask? You should know, did they follow the disability benefits questionnaire? Because I've already studied the DBQ, so I generally know what they're looking for. Did they miss sections of it, chunks of it? Did they overlook things? Now, again, they may not go in particular order because you may have given them an answer somewhere along the line that they know when they get down to that question, I don't need to re-ask it to get the same damn answer back. But they may miss entire sections that you didn't. They may miss exam parts that they were supposed to do, but they didn't. So I want to jot all of that stuff down just so that I know when that compensation and pension exam comes back and my rating comes back, and if I think my rating is low, I can go to my VSO and I can say, hey, can you pull up my C&P exam? I want to see what it says, so that you're able to know if it was a good C&P exam and you got a bad rating, or maybe the rating that you got is accurate. We all want to be a higher rating. We all think we're at a 20 or 30% when we may be at a 10%. We all think we're at a 30%, or, oh, I've got this, I should be at 50%. I don't know why they gave me 10. I got screwed. But you look at that and you're really only at a 10%. So but I at least want to go back and look at what are the answers that they annotated, and is it accurate? So go back, spend some time when you get done, same day, and just jot that down. Next, I want to be ready to submit any additional evidence that they need. Was something missing? Was the exam report incomplete? Does the VA need additional evidence from you? Right? So I need to be ready. But I can tell you right now, as of March of 2026, is that they're flying. You drop your claim paperwork, within a week to 2 weeks, depending on where you live. This is all depending on where you live. Out here in Eastern Washington, I had a friend of mine drop his paperwork on Thursday and got an email, your appointment's on Monday. I had another friend, she had her compensation and pension exam on a Thursday and had her VA rating on Monday. So the VA's goal is to get it to 30 to 45 days. Right now, I think the last I looked, I think it's at 74 days. So just know, when your compensation and pension exam is done, the examiner fills out the report, they give it back to the VA throws it in the portal, and at any given time within the next day to, 2 or 3 weeks, an examiner's pulling that, they're going to make a decision, they're going to shove it back in the portal. So you need to be ready if the VA asks for information. And I want to keep being seen. Right? Don't go to your compensation and pension exam and then just quit being seen. Don't get your VA rating and then quit being seen. It's important. Continue to be seen. Continue to highlight severity, frequency, and intensity of your symptoms so that your medical provider, whether it's your primary care provider or if you're going to a specialist like chiropractic, physical therapy, massage therapy, your mental health therapist, whoever it is, you want to continue to highlight the symptoms so that if comes down that your claim comes back and it gets denied, it doesn't get service connected, you think you've got a low rating, you're continuing to be seen so that the symptoms continue to be annotated, they continue to be highlighted, so that if you go in and you do a supplemental claim or you do a higher level review, it just doesn't stop for 2 or 3 or 4 months and it's not being seen. Keep being treated, right? One, you want to keep being treated because it helps you to live a better life. Because if I'm treating the symptoms that I have, hopefully it's going to increase my quality of life. But two, it continues to pile on additional evidence that has current symptoms, which supports my current diagnosis, which all ties it in to the nexus that I have to military service. So what are my big takeaways, right? Again, C&P exam doesn't build your claim. I just saw the other day in a Facebook group I'm in, somebody said, okay, I dropped my claim paperwork. When is there an interview to help me get my claim paperwork? There isn't, right? Either you allow the VA to go get it or you go get it yourself and build a fully developed claim. I will tell you, it is best if you do a fully developed claim. Go watch my videos from before and you're going to see the importance of why you should get a fully developed claim versus allowing the VA to go get it. But it equates to what you've already submitted, what you're going to submit. And, I talked about this in a previous video. I just watched Secretary Collins brief Trump at a cabinet level members briefing or whatever, that the VA wants to get rid of the compensation and pension exam altogether in an effort to save, billions of dollars that the VA is paying out to these third-party contractors. Because as Collins said, we can already see the evidence. This is why it's important to ensure that you have the right amount of evidence that is pertinent to your claim, that is organized in a manner chronologically, newest to oldest, oldest to newest. You have your nexus letter in there, you've got your personal statement in there, and all your documents are highlighted. Date, doctor, 1 or 2 symptoms, or 1 or 2 sentences. That it's all in there. So when the VA goes and looks, whether they take away the disability benefits questionnaire and go directly on the evidence, that your evidence is accurate and it tells a story. So it is important, it is vital to your claim that you start to do that now. Don't wait for the VA to go get it. Go get it yourself. Go, if you've got to pay for the money, go to every doctor that you've seen, every specialist that you've seen, and get your own paperwork so that you can pull out what's not pertinent and doesn't matter. And you can highlight those, you can put those in order. And then if you go to my last video, episode 8 on how to organize it, you can take some time to organize your claim so that when your VSO uploads it, or you go and scan it and upload it yourself on your va.gov account under your claim, everything is in order so that if the rater goes to look at it, it just makes sense. So if the VA goes and gets it, right, there's nothing wrong with it. But if you say, here's the 6 doctors I've been to, and you're making a claim, that you've been seeing, for like 8 or 9 years, the rater's got to go through hundreds of papers, hundreds of pieces of medical records that doesn't matter to your claim when you may only need 20 pieces of those records. So it's important. Go get it yourself. Prepare before your compensation and pension exam. So just know, right? I've dropped my, I just lost my thought. Give me a second. We're going to call that one all the concussions kicking in. I filed my intent to file. So I know I've got time. I want to make sure that I take time, and when I'm ready, whether that is 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 8 months, 10 months, I want to make sure that my claim is built and ready to go, because as soon as Either I drop my official claim paperwork or I go to a VSO and I have a veteran service officer drop my official claim paperwork. The VA, as soon as you tell them what you're claiming, they're ready to go. It is going to be a week or 2 or 3, again, depending on where you live, right? Each area is different. Out here in Eastern Washington, I think I heard that we're up to, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 companies that are providing compensation and pension exams. So as soon as a VA starts farming these out, that's not the time you want to go, oh shit, I should go get my stuff ready. You should have everything ready to go. So when you go to your VSO, you can give them your evidence and it's all organized in a manner that they can look at it. And again, if I'm making three or four claims, my neck, my back, migraines, and radiating pain down my right arm, I want to have 4 piles of evidence. My neck, my back, my migraines, and the radiating pain down my right arm, all looking the exact same. The nexus letter, my personal statement, any imaging, any specialty tests I have. Maybe I had an EMG or an ENG on my right arm. It's a nerve muscle study, and it shows that I have chronic residual radiculopathy, radiating pain down my right arm. Okay, I want to make sure that's highlighted. That sits out in my just before the bulk of my evidence, and then my evidence is all chronological, newest to oldest, oldest to newest, whatever way you want to do it. But each claim all looks the same. So that way, when I give it to my veteran service officer and say, I'm ready to make a claim, they can look at it. They can fill out the appropriate claim paperwork with the appropriate thing that you're claiming, the appropriate condition that you're claiming, because it's all sitting right there. And it allows them to take a look and be able to say, hey, you know, yeah, you want to claim your migraines, but you know, your nexus to military service is kind of weak or it's non-existent. You may want to get that, right? Before you just claim it and the VA denies it. So that's why it's important to use like a veteran service officer, because one, they're free. And sure, they're free, but they have a caseload of 600 or 700 people. They are busy people. That is why it's important for you to do the work up front so that when you show up, you can maximize your time with them. Don't go to a lawyer. Sure, a lawyer is going to do the exact same thing that a veteran services officer is going to do, and they're going to take 20% of your back pay. So, hey, if you're willing to give up 20% of your back pay, which means if I've waited 8 months for a claim and, you know, I make a solid 90% claim, 100% claim, and I lose $4,000, $6,000, $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 in back pay, hey, if that's you, it's your world, right? But if I'm going to use a VSO, I want to maximize my time with them. I just don't want to show up and say, hey, what do you need? I want to show up because I've watched the videos and I've spent time researching, gathering, organizing. My claim is ready. They filed the claim paperwork. I've reviewed the Code of Federal Regulations, so I know exactly how the VA is going to rate me, when they're going to rate me, on what condition they're going to rate me, and at what percentage. And I've studied the disability benefits questionnaire. So I know exactly what the compensation and pension examiner has to fill out. So I know the questions that they're going to ask. I know the tests they're going to run. And looking at the Code of Federal Regulations, is I know what my claim is going to look like. And I'm going to highlight the hell out of my severity, my symptoms, severity, frequency, and impact to my personal and professional life. And I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to over-exaggerate, and I'm surely not going to minimize my claim. I want to make sure that the evidence that I provide the VA to make a rating is the exact verbiage or symptoms, severity, frequency, and impact that I tell that compensation and pension examiner, right? That is how you can have a solid compensation and pension exam. So what do I want you to do next? I want you to go out and pick up a copy of How to Make a Strong VA Disability Claim the First Time. It's our book. It's on Amazon. That book walks you through this entire process. Every video that I've made so far, all of that information is in the book. All of the information in the book is vital to, it's built and focuses on how you can make a strong disability claim, right? Stop guessing, take the guesswork out, start to build and make a solid claim. Next, if you haven't, please subscribe and like this video, subscribe to our channel, right? It helps me get in front of other veterans that are getting ready to have their compensation and pension exam, or have had their compensation and pension exam, didn't get the rating they like, to be able to go back through and take a look and go, oh, that's where I missed the mark. I didn't do that. The examiner didn't do this, right? So help me get in front of other veterans. And then there's a link below to be able to go in and download our 4 free checklists, right? These checklists help put you on a claim to understand the process, figure out potential claims. It gives you the nexus letter package that you need so that you can go get a strong nexus letter to help you build your claim. So with that said, slow down, do the research, gather the pertinent evidence for your claim, organize it in a manner that makes sense to the rater to give you the rating that you want, and go out and make a strong VA disability claim today.